Today we're going to cover denials, alerts, and batch reports. We're going to be using version 9.3. The previous workshops or webinars that we've had, and these are posted on our website at resources under training videos. We have one that lasts about an hour on current checkout and on-demand reports. And we have another one, best historical usage reports. So I would highly encourage you to, if you haven't seen those webinars, take a look at them. So we have a total of 3 in this series. We're trying to focus on best practices so that our customers get the most value out of our product. So let's start with denials. What are denials? Well, we're referring to something when the engineer can't get a license, can't check out a license, none are available. That's logged as a denial in the Flex debug logs. And there are a number of reasons why denials occur, but no license available is one of the most important ones that you wouldn't be monitoring. So just to start with, you need to know that denial data comes from the Flex debug logs or the DSLS debug logs. So in order to see denial data or reports, you do need to have the Flex debug log available for each tag. Each different ported host is going to have its own debug log. So you need to have that set up and collecting data. And then we need to set up the Flex denial parser in our system so that we go out and parse that log file and pull in the denial data on a regular basis. We have a white paper or an application note up on our website. Under resources, you can just type in the search box, Flex denial parsing, and it'll bring up the document. If you are planning to track denials, I suggest you start there. Download that document, Flex denial parser setup, which is right underneath this hyperlink here, and read about it, and that'll help you set up the log files for parsing. We have the same thing for DSLS if you want to track denials under DSLS. One other point about denials is no denials is very expensive. So the objective is not to get to a 0 denial level because that's too expensive. A certain level of denials is acceptable. We feel best practices suggest, and you'll see this red BP, which stands for best practices, a little notation as we go along today. That's our recommendation, is that 5% probability of denial is acceptable. 0 is not acceptable. 10% may be too high. And you can learn about your denial probability in the concurrency graph. If you forget where that's at, let me jump. And I am going to be jumping back and forth into the live product. So here's 9.3, and we'll go to usage, and we'll look at a concurrency graph because I want you to see the probability of denial. So when you do these concurrency graphs, it shows you the number of licenses that can be concurrently checked out. In this case, we own 10 licenses, and we see that 10 licenses during this time period were checked out 2% of the time. These little numbers add up to 100%. So the objective here is to try to keep these numbers at capacity, right? Right now we're at capacity at 10, around 5%. So we could knock off that one. We could probably knock off that one and get to 8. So that would give you that 5% probability of denial. So anyway, use the concurrency graphs to help you determine what your probability of denial is, and best practices again suggest that try to keep that around 5%. So let's look into parsing log files. So these are logs, and size matters. So if it's a huge log, a gigabyte or more, it's going to take a while to parse it the first time. We have to go through. It's a big log file to parse, but subsequent parses will be quicker, because we don't go back and parse it from the beginning. We'll parse it from where we left off. But the objective is to keep those log files reasonably small. Many of our customers, they rotate out the log file monthly, so they start with a fresh log file once a month or once a quarter. You can decide if that's what you want to do. If you choose to let it continue to grow over years, I mean, that log file could get to be several gigabytes big, and it's just becomes a monster. So you might want to consider rotating those debug logs and starting fresh every week, month, quarter, year, whatever time period you want to choose. The thing that's most important, though, is to put in the log file to that, the path to that log file. We need to know, LAMUM needs to know where the log file is located. And we do that on the LAM side of the tool. And there's a test button there to test the validity of the path, just to see if the path is valid. If you can't get to that log file, if it's remote somewhere, you might have to consider setting up a cron to move a copy of that log file to a more local drive on the LAM, for instance, on the LAMUM server. That's just sort of a word of caution, because if we can't get to the Flex debug log, we can't collect the denial data. Other thing you need to know about paths is that a path has to be absolute from the LAMUM server to the Flex debug log. And let me just go back over into LAM and show you, where you put that path. So it's under the licenses tab where you put in the line item here. You might recall there was if I edit this, there was a log file box down here under network, and this is where you're going to put in that path to the Flex debug log. And then when you click test, it'll try to determine the validity of that path. Is that path good or bad? A couple of things you need to know is you have to have the file name at the end of the path, wherever that's at. So let's go back over here to our presentation. And so the other thing you need to do, once you put the correct path and you're getting the green light on the path, the next step is to go to the parser setup, which is under usage, parsers, and then use Flex denial parsing. And you're going to set the time of day when the parsing is going to occur. You're going to set the frequency of the parsing. Is it going to be daily, weekly, monthly, whatever, how frequently you want it to parse. And then there is also a button there for the first parse so that you can pull in data initially. And this is also a way of testing whether the Flex debug log can be opened and parsed. Just keep in mind, if it's a very large file, if the debug log is very big, more than say 500 megabytes, you might want to click the parse now button at the end of the day and let it parse overnight, because it could take an hour or two, to go through the complete parsing cycle. Again, moving back over to LAMUM, we go to usage, we go to parsers, and you'll see there's one here specifically for Flex denial parsing. You click on that. And again, this is after you put in the path. So these are all the tags that I'm monitoring here in my demo, and these are the paths to the debug logs for each of these. And they're all listed here. So you have to have that in first, and then you come here, and this is where you would set the time of day that the parsing is going to occur. In this case, 11 o'clock at night, 2300 hours, and then the frequency. And this is going to parse every third day. So you can set this up to parse as frequently as you want. This is the Parse Now button I referred to. When you click that, it's going to go out and try to connect to every one of these debug logs and parse it and pull in current data, denial data. So again, this is something you might want to do at the end of the day if you have large log files there. So back over to our presentation. That's pretty much all that's required. If the parse now is successful, meaning that we got to the log file and we're able to parse it, you'll get a green light, and you'll now have denial data, and you can start to see denial reports. If you do the parse now and it comes back red, that means that there's a problem with us opening and parsing that log file. And there could be several problems. So let's look at common denial setup problems. One is the path is not valid. You can't get a green light when you put the path in there. And so you want to make sure that the debug log name is at the end of that path. Second reason that you might not be getting a green light on that test is that there's a firewall or there's a permission issue, and you can't get to the log file until you clear that firewall or permission issue. That you're going to have to talk to your IT department, but you need to get that green light on the path first. Another problem sometimes is, okay, you thought you had a debug log there, but there is no debug log because you never set it up initially. And so when you're putting in a FlexLM license, Daemon, initially it's going to, ask you if you want a debug log. And if you didn't set it up, you need to go into your Flex admin tools and make sure that a Flex debug log is there at that ported host, at that daemon, at that tag. And there's going to be, again, a separate debug log for each tag. Make sure it's there and that it has the proper file name and that the file name is in the path. The other reason or problem that you could have is when you go to the Parse Now button and you click Parse Now and it comes back red, that means that we're not able to, we can get to the log file, but we can't parse it. And there's several reasons, couple reasons why it won't parse. One is the debug log must be read-write. And two, is there any permissions on accessing or opening that log file? You make sure this is something you got to go to IT for. Make sure that the debug log has the proper permissions. And then the other note here is the debug log rotation thing. If you decide to do it, there's a number of articles written on the subject, and we can help you with that if you need help on setting up a debug log rotation schedule. There's nothing wrong with letting it run and collect data for years and years and years. It's just going to get huge and unmanageable at some point. So let's look at the kinds of denials that there are. In FlexLM, there's a number of reasons that you can get denials. This is just a partial listing. There's probably twice this many reasons that you could get a denial. But the one that is most important to you as a manager of CAD CAE licenses is the -400 error code. So each of these is a different error code. So anything that's -4XXX, those denials are caused because there's license number of users already reached, meaning there's no more licenses. That's the one that you really want to know about. That's the denial that's most important. That's called the true denials as opposed to the false denials. False denials can be any one of these other reasons here. So in our tool, in our system, you can filter out just on the -400 error codes, and those are the most important denials for you. So looking at the different ways, the different reports available for denials, we have something called the denials overview, which can be initially, it defaults to 365, so it'll show you all your denials in the last year by tag, and then you can drill in by month, week, and day and see the denials at each time period. This is where you can use your, apply your filter, your -4 filter code, and see just true denials out of the group. You can also filter on feature names or user names or tag names. And then there are denial reports by tags. There are denial reports by users. There are denials heat maps. If you recall, a checkout heat map shows you the day and time when the licenses are getting checked out the most. The denials heat map will show you the day and time when the denials are occurring. So that's kind of useful way to visualize when the denials are occurring. And then we have a denials graph, which will show you over any period of time graphically how many denials you're getting each day. Let's take a look at some of those reports. So the first one is the denials overview report, and you see it defaulted to 365. So here it's showing me all my denials across all my tags. And then I can, if I want to see just the last 30 days, I can just change the time period. Notice that this changes depending upon the period of time that you choose. And then you can also, with this, you can display only the -4000 class codes, or you can display all codes. It's totally up to you. So you can filter it right from here and hit submit, and it would show you just the -4000 codes. And you can drill in to the detail. Let's take a look at MATLAB. So in my demo, these are the months that I have data on. I can drill in and see who got denied, how many times they got denied, the time they got denied, the date, the tag, the client, the machine they've been using, and this is the error code that we filtered on. We already set that up. And again, you can create that for whatever time period that you want. So that's the denial overview, and from here also you can get to a heat map. So if I wanted to look at the heat map from MATLAB, again, it's the same concept. You can visualize 24 hours in a day along the x-axis, 7 days in the week. And in this period, this last 7 days, these are when my denials were occurring, these dark reds. That's when you're getting your denials. And then you can also do graphs. So if we can do a graph over a period of time, nice colorful way of looking at you can see the dates here on the bottom. This happens to be a 1 year graph, and it shows me how many denials I'm getting every month in this case for this particular tool. So that's your tag and that's your tool right there, right? So those are called graphs, and again, you can get those out, and once you have them, you can copy them, save them, whatever you want to do with them. So those are the different ways of looking at denials using the overview. I didn't show the tag, so there's over here on the home tab, this is all usage by tag, right? So these are all the tags that I have, and over here there's a denial. So if I want to see just the denials on this tag, all denials on this tag, I just click that, and I only have one feature there, but then, so this is the same thing. I'm looking at all the denials for this tag, 365, 30 days, whatever period of time, 7 days, whatever period of time I want. I can drill in and see the details here if I like. So those are my denials by tag using the home page. I can also see denials by users, by specific users over any given period of time. And I have showed you the denial heat map and the denials graph from the overview page. So that's pretty much all I have to say on denials. If you have trouble setting it up, then you're going to need to read that app note that I mentioned, or contact support@teameda.com, and we'll see if we can help you get your denials set up and working. But again, every tag has its own Flex debug log, and each of those debug logs need to be parsed in order for us to collect the data. Then you can see all these different reports. Let's move over to the alerts. We have 8 different alerts in LAMUM. The first and probably one of the most important is being able to detect a daemon LMGRD down and report that immediately, because you obviously need to know if a daemon goes down. So we have a daemon alert. If you click on that, all you need to do is put in your email address and select the daemons that you want, the tags that you want to be monitored. So in this case, you can just select them all. And then you go ahead and list them down here. You could have different tags, alerts going to different people if you want. But what essentially happens here, we monitor all these tags, and if that daemon goes down or that LMGRD goes down, it's going to send an alert to this person right here. And it's going to continue to send the alert at this interval. We have set 30 minutes, but we could set it anywhere from 5 to 60 and click update. But every 30 minutes, it's going to continue to send me an alert as long as that daemon is down. So the daemon alert is pretty darn important. Set by tag, you can send it to multiple people. It doesn't have to be just one. You can set the frequency. And what I would suggest, best practices suggest, is if you get that alert, the first thing you want to do is contact the sysadmin on that server immediately. And in LAMUM, you can keep the name of the sysadmin in LAM under the servers tab. So real quickly, go back over here to LAM and the servers, and you can see here's all my servers, and there's a place over here to put the sysadmin's name. If you want to see what that looks like, it's under, when you put in your server here, you can edit the detail on that server, and then these are all the sysadmins that I have listed. If he's not in the person's not in the list, you can add him. And again, the most important part of this is being able to, this server's down. Oh my God, I got to call John Eastman and try to get it back up. So it's a very high priority thing. These alerts are all there to help you react to undesirable conditions, and an LMGRD down is one of those conditions. The second alert, capacity threshold alert, has to do with being alerted when you're all checked out, when you're at capacity or near capacity. And that might be useful for some of your tools, that you just want to be notified when all of the licenses are checked out, because you're probably getting denials at that point, or could be other considerations, but you set this at the tag feature level. You set a value, a threshold, at which point you're going to be notified. So if you own 10 licenses, you can set that threshold at 10, or you can set it at 9. And then who gets the alert? And you could have multiple people get the alert if you want. And then you can also set the alert interval. How frequently do you want to be alerted on that? You're going to set this up for licenses where there's a lot of demand, and so you want to make sure that you're aware when there's enough, when all the licenses are checked out. You might want to go to your current checkouts and see who has them and how long have they been checked out. And if people are hoarding or camping on licenses, you need to react to that. If you're getting a lot of capacity, if you set this at what your capacity is, you set it at, say, 10 is your limit, and you're getting a lot of capacity alerts at 10, that might mean you're getting denials. Probably good chance you're getting denials if you're getting a lot of capacity alerts. So this is another way it might help you determine if you need more licenses. So if you're getting a lot of capacity alerts, you might need more licenses. I wouldn't set this up for all of your licenses, but certainly the ones that are, very critical to you. If I come back over here to the capacity alerts, just so you can see what it looks like, you pick the tool that you want to set it on, and then the feature. In this case, we only have 2 features, but pick the feature and then the threshold. LAMUM knows that we own 10 of this feature, and so what level do you want to set you want to set it at 10, or do you want to set it at 9? And then who gets the alert, and then submit. It's that simple. And then this is the frequency. So this is going to send an alert every 4 hours as long as you're still at capacity. So that's the capacity alert. I think that's a very useful one. The next one is expiration alerts, and we offer 2 different kinds of expiration alerts. One is tied to the renewal date, and the other is tied to the actual license file expiration itself. So the renewal date is set in LAM, and you do that going back over here to, you'll see when you put in a license, this is the expiration date of the renewal. This is the renewal date here. And that comes from this field right here, expiry date. So this is a field you need to put in manually. It's not going to detect it, but my renewal is May 17th, 2022, whatever it is. And the alert, if you have that set up, will tell you whatever time period you have. Like in my example here, I have 60 days set as my alert notification time period for my renewal. Again, we're not talking about the actual license key at this point. We're talking about the renewal date. We recommend about a 60-day alert before expiration, because that's about what it's going to take you to get your ducks together and be ready to negotiate with the vendor for your renewal. And you could have different people getting different alerts at different intervals. Some guys might want to get it 30 days in advance. Some people might want to get it 90 days in advance. So you can do that with the system. But just keep in mind that there's 2 different expiration alerts. One tied to the contract renewal date, which you maintain manually. And the other one is the actual license file expiration. That we monitor as well. But this is automatic. It reads directly from the ported host. And you would set your alert notification time period on this one to the amount of time it takes you to contact the vendor and get a new license file. That might be 15 days in advance or 30 days in advance. So you can have them set the same. You might be asking, well, why do we have 2 different alerts here? It's because the contract renewal date is not necessarily the license file or license key expiration date. You may be remixing every quarter. So you're getting new license files every quarter, whereas the contract itself renews every 2 years. So that's why we track them separately. So let's look a little closer at the expiration alert. And to get to that, you got to get to the usage tab. You go to alerts over here, and then you go to expiration alerts. And this is where you set this up over here. Who's going to get the alert? how frequently or how far in advance do you want to get the alert, and then what tags. This is all done by tag. Which tags do you want to be alerted on? You can select them all or just specific ones like we did down here. So I'm going to get the alert on these tags. Matthew's going to get the alert on this tag, and he's going to get his alert 30 days in advance. I'm going to get my alert on MATLAB Demo 2 at 45 days, Demo 3, 30 days. You can set different warning periods on different types of licenses here. So again, this is expiration alerts that have to do with the actual license key, which is absolutely critical. And again, you can set the alert interval here. You can be alerted, daily on this if you want, or weekly, as long as you're coming up on that alert period. So that's your expiration alerts. I think we've covered that pretty adequately. The next one is the long checkout, and you would set this up for real expensive licenses. So if you got a $50,000 license and you want to set a limit on how long people can have that checked out for, you can do that. 2 days, 5 days, 8 hours, whatever the limit is, you can set that up. You also want to do this where, again, you have a lot of contention, people fighting over licenses, and you want to limit how much time people can have a license checked out, and you're trying to prevent hoarding. That's what this is all about. So you're not going to do the long checkout for all of your licenses, but you're going to do it for the ones where you have contention or where they're really expensive, when you want to put some limit on how long the licenses can be checked out for. That limit, you can, if you don't know what it should be, you can estimate what a good limit is based on the average checkout time from your averages report. If I jump over to the averages report just real quickly here, so there's over here, you can see what's the average checkout time on MATLAB. Let's just take a look. I'm trying to figure out, what's a reasonable amount of time. Let's do the last 7 days, and on this tag, we only had one feature that's checked out, and the average checkout time was 1 hour and 14 seconds. So, this is not a really good example, but I might use that and say, well, maybe I'll put a limit of 2 hours on this, or an hour and a half. Maybe that's the limit. So you can use the average checkout time, which is this field, average usage. This is the average checkout time, and that's from the averages report. And that's available by tag over here. You have your averages report over here by tag, or you have over here, you have comprehensive averages, which is across all the tags. And this is a great monthly or weekly batch report that you can just generate and see the averages across all your tools. But anyway, that's useful to help you determine what your limit is over here. So the long checkout, essentially, you set up, you pick a tag in a feature, create the limit, whatever that number is, who gets the alert, and whether a warning message should be sent or not. Yes, LAMUM can actually send a warning message to the user who has violated the limit if you are connected to Active Directory. So you must be connected to Active Directory. We use Active Directory to get the email address for the user, the violator, and then we send them a message. Now let me show you what that, and you can review and modify the warning message if you don't like our views. So let's just go to the alerts and go to the long checkout alert for, well, let's pick NX, doesn't really matter. So to set up the long checkout, you pick a tag and then the feature. So these are all the features that are available at this tag. And then what's the limit in days or hours? You can have it either way. Who gets the alert? And whether you want a warning message sent or not. And it's either yes or no. If it's yes, it goes to Active Directory. If somebody violates the rule, it goes to Active Directory, get that email address, and then it sends this warning message down here, edit user warning message. This is where you can change the warning message. This is the default one, which looks like this when it gets sent out. So this is like a little preview frame here. But I can edit this, put in whatever words I want. There are 4 variables that can get stuck into the message here. You just embed the variables and just click update, and you'll get a preview of that message here. But that's what gets sent out if you have selected yes to warning message. If you selected no, then the message won't get sent out, but it'll still send an alert to whoever you have here as the email recipient. So it's a nice useful alert, but only for specific features where you want to control or limit the amount of time that a license is checked out for. Let's go back up here. We've got a couple more that I want to show you: the duplicate license checkout, the available license alert, and then the denials threshold alert. So going down, let's go down to the duplicate license checkout. This is a new alert in 9.3, and especially is basically you set up a tag in a feature and who gets the alert, and you say basically if a single user, same user ID, checks out more than one license of that tool, it's going to send you an alert. Very simple. If we have an engineer that tries to check out 2, 3, 4 licenses, it's going to give you an email alert on that. So you would set this up again for critical limited licenses, so users can't check out more than one license at a time. You wouldn't do it for all of them, but for some of them, you're going to need to do this if engineers have a habit of checking out multiple licenses just to make sure they have one. You know, they will do that. They're smart. And I'll show you where that alert is at. Again, it's right here under alerts. Duplicate license checkout alert. So it's real simple. You just pick the feature that you want, who gets the alert, what's the time interval. You can set it between 5 and 60 minutes, and it'll monitor, for instance, MATLAB on this server. If anybody checks out more than one, it's going to send you an alert. It's pretty easy to see what it does. That's the duplicate license checkout alert. The available license alert is something that's set up by the engineer himself. So if an engineer can't get a license, they're all checked out, and rather than him sit around waiting and checking and checking, can't get alert, he can just go into LAMUM either through the 8181 or the 8182 view and create an alert for himself to be notified when a license becomes available. So this is used by the engineer to be notified when a license is available. It makes them more productive. They don't need to keep trying to get a license. Usually this is set after getting a denial. So if you're getting if you see a lot of these set up, that probably means there's denials on that license. And the alert should be removed after the engineer gets a license. You don't want to have that thing keep pumping out alerts, so you need to delete it. It's pretty straightforward. I'll show you that. But for this alert to be effectively used by the engineers, you need to train the engineers. That's our comment here, is if you want this to be used, you got to get the engineers, make them aware that this is available, and they can just plug their name in and be notified when a license becomes available. Let's take a look at that alert real quick. Go back to the alerts, and this alert is available on either 8181 or 8182 view. And it's right here, available license alert. So the first thing you do is you pick the tag and the feature that you want to be alerted on. I want to be alerted on, well, let's just say it's Design Studio, and I want the alert to come to me, boom, and it's set up. So when this shows me I only have one license of this, and this has 10 licenses, this has 20, so the capacity is visible there. And what this is saying is, when that license becomes available, send me an alert. It does that. And then after you get your license and you don't need this alert, just come here and delete it. That's it. It's that simple. So you don't get it anymore. But you need to, again, train the engineers. These are alerts that are related to denials. I sort of hinted about that before, but if you're getting a lot of capacity alerts, that means you're probably getting denials. That should be a clue that you're getting denials. If you're getting a lot of available license setups, it probably means there's denials occurring. Well, definitely denials are occurring on that license. And then there's also a third type of alert called the denial threshold alert. And this is new in 9.3. Basically, it allows you, it collects the denial data, and when a specific number of denials occurs per week, per month, per quarter, you're going to set that up. What's an acceptable number of denials in a week or a month or a quarter? And if it achieves that or gets to that point, it's going to send you an alert. So you do need to specify the alert recipient and the alert frequency, same as we've done with all the other stuff. But again, this is targeting denials per week, month, quarter, and you do need to have your Flex denial parser set up. Obviously, this is not going to work unless you have denial data. So going back over here under alerts, you see they have the denial threshold alert. So let's just go to our NX, and again, let's say I want to be alerted on the NX, and the threshold is expressed in a quantity. So maybe it's 10 or 11, whatever quantity you want. Maybe it's 15 denials in a month. If I get 15 denials in a month on this feature, then I want to be alerted. You put your name in there and submit it, and it sets it up for you. So you can have as many of these set up as you want. And again, you can specify the frequency if you want to be notified multiple times, as long as the condition is still there. You have 15 denials per month. And that's pretty much the way you set up a denial threshold alert. Again, it's by tag feature, and you select a value here, could be 5, whatever, and then what's the frequency, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and who gets the alert. That's pretty straightforward. So best practices say set up features getting denials where you have a tolerance for X denials per week. So you need to decide what is your level, what is your tolerance level for denials per week. I really would think that this we would focus pretty much on denials per week, but you could set it up on denials per month. And if you're starting to exceed that number, then you probably need more licenses. But keep in mind that 0 denials is very expensive. As I mentioned earlier, 5% probability of denial is acceptable. 0 denials is very expensive. So let's switch off of alerts and move over to batch reports now. And what are batch reports? These are just routine, regular reports that are going to get generated weekly, monthly, quarterly, or yearly. And they're going to be either sent by email or they're going to be delivered into a folder at that time interval. And any report that you create, if it's a graph or if it's a table type report, it could be set up as a batch report. Again, these are for historical usage reports. They're not for current checkout reports. If you do email delivery, you can email deliver to multiple people just by putting in a semicolon in between email addresses. If it's a folder delivery, you can create your folders up front so they're all available, and you can have multiple folders. There's no reason why you can't deliver different reports into different folders. Folders can be by vendor name. It could be by, whatever you want, server location. Doesn't really matter. You can also, so you can create the folder names in advance, or you can let LAMUM create the folder name. When you put in the path, when you're creating a batch report and you select folder, you have to put in the path to that folder. You just create a new folder name and LAMUM will go ahead and set that up. So you can do batch reports for graphs and batch reports for tables. They're set up differently. Let me show you the difference. So if you're going to create, let's go create a graph. Let's do doesn't really matter. Let's do a graph on this one. So this is a weekly graph on MATLAB, and I say create batch report. It's right here at the bottom of the graph. It's right here. Just create batch report. Click that and then give it a name. So this is MATLAB. I would encourage you to spend some time up front determining a good nomenclature. You want to make sure your report naming convention is used consistently. So this is MATLAB weekly graph, usage graph, however you want to say it. It really doesn't matter. And then the other thing you need to do now is frequency. I want this delivered weekly, monthly, quarterly. No, I want to deliver this weekly, and I can do it into a folder. If I say folder, then I need to put the path here. If I say email, then I just need to put in an email address or multiple email addresses. Created by is usually just initials, whoever creates the report, the batch report, and then just add it, and it's done. So all of these reports are set up and regularly ready to run. Weekly reports are delivered Monday mornings. Monthly reports are delivered first calendar day of the month. Quarterly is first day of the calendar quarter, and so forth. So you can see the different delivery types, path if it's folder, email addresses, and you can change these if you want, and then just click update. But these are, and you can preview these. If I wanted to see, the preview on any one of these, I could just click preview and see what it looks like. So this is the one that I just created down here. And let's say I don't want it anymore. I don't want to get that report. Just say delete and it's gone. So it's very, very easy to create batch reports. I showed you how to create a graph and how to make a batch report out of a graph. You create the graph and just go to that little button at the bottom left corner of the graph and say create graph. If you're doing a table, it's a little different. Let's just do a table type report. You'll notice this is a table of all the users of this feature in the last 7 days. And these are all the people and how much they use it. Oh, I like this report. I want to get this weekly or monthly. So you go to here under display report next to the submit button, and you have several options. You have the display option, which is what we start with. Then you have the ability to export this table to Excel right now. If I did that, it would just generate an Excel spreadsheet out of this. And then the third one is create batch report right here. So if I do that, it's basically hit submit. It'll take me to the batch report generator. This is the URL that creates the report. I just give it a name. This is NX weekly users table. I always like to put whether it's a graph or a table in here. And then how do you want it delivered? I'm going to deliver it weekly, and I want to deliver this, maybe into a folder. I can put in a path to the folder. Maybe it's this path right here. I want that one to go in there. Copy that, put it in here. And then created by, yep, and then add report. So it's that simple, whether you want folder or email delivery. This is the one I just created right here. And again, anytime I want to preview the report, I can just do that. So these are all set up to automatically deliver weekly, monthly, quarterly. And if you're going to do email, you need to have your email mail server set up. So make sure that you have, like I don't have, but you need this mail server set up. Otherwise, you won't get the emails. And that's true of the alerts. The alerts are delivered by email, and the batch reports can be delivered by email. So make sure you have your mail server set up if you don't. So that's that. A couple of comments or best practices notes on batch reports. We recommend that in order for you to get the most out of this tool is that you learn all the possible reports. You're going to have to go through. There's like literally 100 different ways of looking at usage data, either current checkout data, and there's 3 different ways of looking at current checkout data. You can look at the overview table, you can look at the gas gauges, you can look at the details. I'm not going to cover that today, but those are 3 reports on current checkouts. Show them all the historical usage reports, both at the tag level and all of the comprehensive reports that are available under the histories tab. Show them the denials reports, the user detail, the group reports. Let them decide, let management decide which reports they want and how often. Do they want it weekly, monthly? Do they want it on delivery? On demand, where they can just click a button and get it? If so, you set it up as a favorite. Or do they want it as a batch report where it's going to be delivered automatically weekly, monthly? Oh, if they want it as a batch report, how do they want it delivered? Into a folder or through email? So when you have your meeting, go in with a pad of paper and make a list of all the managers that are in the meeting and what they want, what reports they want, how do they want it delivered, what's the frequency, that kind of thing. And then you can go back and create all those reports for them. That's how you get the most value out of this. Of course, you can sit down with management anytime they want and just interactively go and analyze data. But there are going to be some reports that they want to get on their own. And the more that you can transfer that to them, the better. The more you can let them go click on a on-demand button and get the report for themselves, less work for you. You can also, batch reports is no work for anybody. So it's best if you can get management on-demand reports or batch reports. Another thing about batch reports, and that is naming conventions. You want to establish a user-friendly common naming convention. And that could be, feature name, tag name, time period, graph or table, or it could be, graph or table, time period, feature name. I don't care what you choose, but select some nomenclature that makes sense for you and force yourself and others to stick with that nomenclature so that everybody understands the naming convention. One other thing about report names is that they can have spaces and they can have underscores. They could also have hyphens. There's no problem. But other than that, you really can't put any special characters in the report name. So in summary, we covered denials. Denials are very helpful in determining if you need more licenses or not. Don't expect 0 denials. Too expensive. You don't want to have too many denials. 10% probability denial is too high. 5% or 4% or 3%, you need to decide what's an acceptable probability of denial and use your concurrency graphs to tell you where you're running, and then gear your capacity to that. We talked about alerts, and alerts are useful in knowing about critical conditions, whether a server's down or whether you're at capacity or whether you have duplicate license checkouts or long checkouts. People are violating usage limits. Those are what the alerts are for. And the alerts are there to help you be more effective as a manager, to help you get more out of the licenses that you already own, and so forth. The batch reports, again, are there strictly for creating routine usage reports, regular usage reports, weekly, monthly, quarterly.